So all of the principles that I've spoken about before in terms of what makes a good worksheet, we seem to have this habit of just disregarding that when it comes to A level, and suddenly assuming that the learners are independent enough to kind of scaffold things for themselves if they need it. And the reality is that that just isn't the case. And one of the things that I've always been finding with my A level physics classes is there will be some pupils that struggle right from the start and then really can't access any of the tasks that we're giving them, particularly the stuff that we're asking them to do at home. And I think the reality is we just know that they are not completing them themselves. Historically, maybe they were copying them from other people, um, but now we know that they could just be using AI. I actually also have, always encouraged my A-level pupils to mark answers themselves so that they can identify where they're getting things wrong and ask questions about it. And again, that just wasn't really happening in a very productive way. They were maybe just using the mark schemes to complete a task so that they had something to hand in. So a couple of things I would say. First of all, start the worksheets easy. I don't see any reason why actually for an A-level student it shouldn't start with very basic conceptual stuff to make sure they've actually understood the foundations of the knowledge that we're trying to build on and develop in this task. So simple questions, just to kind of ease them in and hopefully build their confidence as they go through. The other thing is that we can add a block of numerical answers right down the bottom. So rather than them going straight for a mark scheme, if it is something that's mathematical, I like to include these in my sheets where it is a list of all of the possible numbers that they might get as they work through the task. They look to find if their answer is on there. If it is, that is an indication that they've got the question correct. If it isn't, that is an indication that they've got the question incorrect, and they need to maybe go through and take a look at their working and try and work out where they've gone wrong, and then go and ask the teacher if they aren't able to do that. Now, the biggest barrier to this being done in an appropriate manner at the moment is that it is impossible to tell whether someone has, I don't want to say cheated their way through it, because I don't think it is as malicious as that, but done it in a way which isn't particularly conducive to good learning. What I've always felt is the answer to this is follow-up testing in class, but that has just been such a difficult thing to facilitate from a kind of administrative point of view. So what I have made is this feature where you can build a follow-up quiz based on a worksheet in here to try and avoid like cheating. That you can kind of make a different number of versions of the same quiz. So it's the same questions for everyone, but the questions are in different orders, and the options A, B, C, and D for the multiple choice questions are in different orders as well. So like the chances of somebody actually being able to look at the person next to them and copy what they've done is next to nothing. Which really is what you want. Again, I have the suspicion that lots of pupils are kind of copying their way through some of these tasks, and they're slipping through the net in terms of identifying their areas of weakness. So the main task was already there. That will probably be something that I maybe set for homework, and then this is now going to create a follow-up multiple choice test in class. So it takes a little bit of time, should be there in just a second. Please note my lovely graphic there as whilst we wait. And what we've got here now is an opportunity to edit some of the questions before they go into the multiple choice quiz. So I'm just going to have a scroll through. Things are kind of looking okay. All right, so the idea is that the questions on this quiz are kind of like mirrors of what was on the original homework task. I'm going to save that. Then it makes me something like this. Right, so here are my multiple choice quizzes, and there is like a bubble sheet for them to fill their answers into. Now the idea with the bubble sheet, and I'll show you this process happening in a second, is that this can be marked like super quickly by just taking a quick scan of it on your phone. So the kind of sequence of tasks would be, they do the homework at home, they are kind of marking things as they go along, all right, because we want them to identify places where they're making mistakes early on so that they can ask questions about it, but we want them to ask questions in an honest and productive way. We're motivating that by letting them know that they're going to have a follow-up quiz in class, and then the follow-up quiz in class can be marked super quickly so that in the lesson where you're doing it, you can kind of pull someone up and say, you've clearly not learnt from this homework, albeit whether that's happened because of a decision that you've made about doing the task dishonestly, or it's just something that you're really struggling with. Um, that's identified on the day, and then you can kind of do some kind of follow-up intervention process based on that, rather than letting these things just build up and compound over time, and only dealing with the lack of understanding when you get to like a PPE period, an exam period, and suddenly it's identified by them getting a U in the exam. So this would be printed off. Here's the quiz. That's where they record their answers, and I'll show you now what that looks like in terms of a marking process.